tacking on number 3, which is interesting because when this was put together, this is the 3-star. Number 3, Jameson.
Ah.
All right, there you go.
Such a well-organised festival. You know, I mean,
well, you know, some people think it might be organised, but other people might think it's all over the place. But sure, we'll get there. We're getting there. Listen, what can we tell us about this? Because you've got the 2 Jamesons in this.
Yeah.
This one here, from what period? Where are we?
Again, well, this is proper pot still, so 50s and 60s Jameson. You know, and
remarkable. We're in the 2021. This is going back. This is, you know, is there people? I mean, there must be people alive, obviously, that have been drinking this back in the day, but no one I know.
I mean,
would be drinking it.
I love old and I'll put it this way: anyone who's had the Powers, and even you know, as far back as I've ever had a Powers, I think the oldest Powers I had was from the 40s. There's that continuity, and people recognise our Powers is still, whereas Jameson is a fundamentally different product now. You know, it's light years away.
Oh, I mean, they've even changed the 18 in the last couple of years completely differently.
Yeah, and even after Jameson becomes a blend, the blend, like even the 70s blend, is not Bow Street-esque, really. It embraces that idea of it became the flagship international blended product. Whereas Bow Street whiskey, and I can say this with a bit more, you know, if you pick up an old bottle of Bow Street and it says, you know, this product contains nothing other than barley, wheat, and oats. Now, roughly classic pot still mash bill is 40% malt, 40% raw barley, 15% oats, 5% wheat. Some of them, Jameson originally had a small sprinkling of oats, which are not oats, rye, you know, 1 to 2%. I've to this day never understood quite why. That was quite common. Tullamore, I know for a fact, held on to that until they closed down. Whereas, again, unless they're leaving it out of the bottle, it seems Jameson homogenized to the one. Probably the most important document that came up in the research was the notes of the Irish Pot Still Distillers Association, which again are in the National Library of Ireland. I can give you the file number. Go see them yourself. It's a fantastic resource because it's the Locke's archives, but it's also Locke's copies of the Irish Pot Still Distillers Association memorandum that were just sent round to the members. And in 1953, you know, shortly after the original Irish Whiskey Act, 1951, they sent a letter to the government trying to clarify certain things that weren't in the Act, and they define Irish pot still whiskey, and they use this mash bill. Now, Cork distillers seem to have been just using oats in a small way as a kind of a filtration. Cumber were just using oats in a larger way. But that core, if you're going to talk about one mash bill that defined the genre, it was that Dublin mash bill. It was that tumbling order about, again, 15 to 18% oats, about 4 to 7% wheat, and about 1% rye, which then coalesces, and a higher malt content than you got in the country. So, you know, Powers slightly higher again. Powers made a point of saying they used 50% malt. But your classic is really the Jameson mash, and that's, again, 40% malt, 40% raw barley, 15% oats, and 5% wheat. Now, again, they vary, they vibrate. You know, they're using 100-weight sacks, so it changes. But the reason that document was important was because if you lay something, and it's postmarked from Bow Street, you know, it's signed by the whole gang. When you lay something down in 1953, that becomes the 7-year-old in 1960, let alone the 12-year-old. You know, so in 1967, that's the end of it being pot still at all. So it was essentially confirming to me for the first time that all these old pot still whiskies were very different, and B, giving a sense of that longevity, that continuity with the past. And, you know, we just had the second leg of the thesis panel yesterday. I thumbed through I've got a big stack of it sitting over there, actually. A big stack of data, of notes. And, you know, of course, you know, just wildly curious, and I was thumbing through it, and it hasn't been decoded. It was all, you know, the different people got different things at different times. But one thing that was poking out to me was the two things that code for mouthfeel as they go up were raw barley, no surprise, and wheat. As we raised the wheat content, people almost consistently felt that it got heavier and it got more savory, you know. And so there's only 5% wheat in that, but there are different textures in that old generation pot still. Oats, again, oats blew me away what they did, because I expected like oatmeal stout kind of flavors, creaminess, but ended up with this like the taste of cream rather than the feeling of cream. You know, high note vanilla, almost glycerin kind of sweetness. You know, artificial sweetener kind of stuff, not fruity sweetness, but you know, clean sweetness. And then again, you're talking, you know, tails of your distillation regimen in general, but whatever it may be, all Bow Street Classic, like I was saying earlier, you give that a smell, and there is that weird, like, orange pith smell off of Old Bow Street, and I love that flavor, and it's not in Powers, it's not in any of the others. You know, that weird, like, citrus, but not lemon citrus, like orange peel oils, you know, like bartender squirting the you know, if you get some of that in your eyes, that kind of sensation. Yeah,
that's the first thing I do when I go to a bar. I ask somebody to spray that in my eye. Give me a little bit of that zest in there, would
but
you?
there's that weird orange zest, tangerine, you know, all the odd bits of like the orange tangerine family. The like white stuff in the middle. Is that still called pith? You know, like the little white bits. Pith is the white bit that's around the edges, but the stuff that's in the fruit, that's still pith. But that's a different texture altogether. You know, there's the like plastering around the inside of.
It's pith just a bit. There's a little bit kind of.
Well, there's the white dry bit
like moldy
inside, but there's also the like stringy bits in the.
I would call it pith.
Yeah, but it's two different. You know.
Anyone want to disagree with pith?
There's all that, you know, it is if Powers pot still is oily and medieval and robust and strange and wood shoppy and resinous, Jameson, it's still pot still, it's still oily, but it's got that like waxiness, not dissimilar, that waxiness to what was in the last one, but again, that classic, like, how would you put it, you know, if you could turn pith into sugar, you know, and wherever it's coming from. But yeah, we can talk quite honestly. And when I had that evidence, and you look at those bottles in the 50s and 60s that say this product contains nothing other than barley, wheat, and oats, the one remaining question for me has always been like, I knew Middleton had used about 5% oats, and I wasn't sure if it had changed to that, but I eventually found a copy of both the Middleton and the North Mall mashes that had never been returned to the National Archives in another resource. Just somebody had never given the book back. And they were doing this in the 1890s as well. So Middleton very clearly did have that small oaten adjunct, whereas again, you had that Dublin and Dublin's peers, as it were, you know, this concept, like Tullamore and Locks were really making Dublin pot still outside of Dublin. You know, the canals made them essentially a Dublin colony. But that mash bill, which again can be simplified to 40-40, 15-5, defined pot still in such a big way, you know. And again, even with all that data in hand and wondering, there's still the question, like distilling methodology was different. There's so many things that are different.
There's an interesting comment here. It says, okay, someone needs to start throwing out flavour descriptions because I can't even describe the dominant smell and flavour I'm tasting. Nothing like I've ever tasted before.
It's wonderful stuff. And then there's the question of,
it's not, am I right in saying it's not like whiskey we're drinking just now, or is there something that we could say is equivalent to?
No, there's nothing like it today. There's like a fusty sort of note to it, is how I would describe it. Again, it's the same as whenever you talk about leather and stuff like that, it's not really a taste as such. It's just
it's an imagining of a taste, is it? An imagining of a taste?
But it's sort of, it's like a fusty, dusty, musty
yeah.
thing.
Is it those old egg bottles where you get that just come through? Is that how the liquid was made? Or is that how it made it? Or is that how it aged in the bottle? Or that's the first one that had that.
The thing I find interesting there is that the Tullamore Dew is closer to the Jameson than it is to the Powers.
Yeah.
In terms of
well, there's that waxiness they both have, definitely.
Yeah.
Now the Powers. So the Jameson 3 Star is a 7-year-old. So there was that more cask dependent, but even by modern standards, you know, whiskey has lent into cask. Well, casks have gotten better. Full stop. There's one thing that differentiates, you know, that has, I would say, objectively gotten better. I'd be amazed by someone who says it's gotten worse. Over time, it is our understanding of wood and how important it is, but we lean into it, and we lean into vanilla and so forth today in a way that wasn't done in the past, where it was obliged to be spirit led, and then at the same time you had heavier spirit and you had a more complex or diverse system of mash bills. And again, you are getting these different elements. So like that we have to look at the past through a range of windows. One is what's gotten better, and one, what have we lost, and how do we deal with this? But they are these peculiar and miraculous flavors that come out.
I've continually said that about these tastings, that these ones that we look at when we hark back to the past, that I want people to think, are we getting better? Is what we are drinking better? Or actually, are we missing something? Have we dropped the ball somewhere? I mean, is this something that you would prefer to drink, or is there stuff, at the moment we're being given so much choice and so much opportunity to drink lots of different things that this is lost?
I think it's coming back. You look 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had your three stars, and it all sort of became very samey. You had your standard blends. If you look back some of the older stuff, there's a unique character, flavour profile to them. I think it's coming back now, but it's still early days. That's what we want. We want the Irish not to be smooth, drinks to whatever else, but this is nice whiskey.
Yeah, I could happily drink this for the rest of my life, and
You'll
Jameson.
You'll pay a fortune.
Yeah, Jameson was, and of course Jameson.
Good luck with that.
Jameson was the posh man's whiskey. It was a very different brand at the time to what Jameson is today, and there was that. There's a reason they were in bed with Gilbey's and Mitchell's and these kind of respectable wine producers. It was a different kind of drink, but again, it was phenomenal. It was and
why tell me this? Why? I mean, because again, let's just talk about commercialization and branding. This was 7 years whiskey, beautiful wee characteristic drawings that you would have on these bottles going forward, but Jameson dropped that. Really big time. They dropped that. I mean, everything Jameson, these days is non-age statement, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Crested 10 is Crested 10, but now it's Crested X. I mean, they don't even want to say 10 anymore.
And I'll put it this way, and I'm hurting myself. One of my I don't buy too much stuff at auction because I have no self-control, and I wake up in the morning and I drink all this stuff. I'm a terrible collector, so I'm not even I'm not making money out of it. But what I used to buy a lot was white cap, screw cap, Crested 10, which I adore. And it had this wonderful linseed. Oh my God, just again.
With a big red badge on the front.
Yeah, the blended Crested 10 with a little white screw cap, and I was getting it for pittance because nobody gives a damn about like 80s blended Jameson off branches. But the stuff is so linseedy, oily, and so fun. And I could sit there with a tumbler of it and wash it around like Rinseaid. Rinseaid is a dishwashing product. What am I talking about?
I think he means mouthwash.
Yeah.
Do not